Lily Harper was just another receptionist among the many employees at Carter Enterprises. But that day, everything would change. Her routine was simple: answering calls, organizing packages, and occasionally smiling at the high-level executives who walked past the front desk without even glancing at her. It was just another day until the company's CEO, Ethan Carter, walked into the office with a grim expression. Ethan was in trouble. His multi-billion-dollar company was making headlines for all the wrong reasons: workplace abuse, questionable practices, the kind of news that makes investors run for the hills. He needed to salvage his reputation, and fast. That night's gala was his last chance to turn things around. But there was a problem. Claire Bennett, the ideal companion he had chosen, canceled at the last minute. "Ryan!" Ethan called his assistant with urgency. "Now what? Who do I take?" Ryan Blake, always trying to fix problems before they spiraled, hesitated before suggesting, "Well, maybe someone from the office." Ethan laughed, finding the idea ridiculous, until his eyes landed on Lily, calmly chatting with a delivery man at the reception desk. She had a composed demeanor, but there was no arrogance. She seemed organized and elegant in a simple way. He frowned. "Bring her here. Now." Minutes later, Lily was standing in Ethan Carter's imposing office, trying to hide her nervousness. She had never spoken to the boss directly before. "Mr. Carter?" she asked in a low, almost timid voice. Ethan assessed her like someone selecting an accessory. "I need you to accompany me to an event tonight. It's important. All you need to do is smile, be polite, and most importantly, don't say anything unnecessary. Understood?" Lily was shocked. She wasn't paid for this, but she also knew it might be her chance to prove she was more than just a receptionist. "Yes, sir," she replied firmly, though she had no idea what she was getting into. "Ryan, make sure she's presentable, something sophisticated. We meet at 7. Don't be late." At precisely 7 o'clock, Lily was ready. An elegant navy blue dress highlighted her poised confidence, even though she still felt out of place. Ethan was waiting in the car with the patience of a storm. "At least you follow orders," he remarked, evaluating her appearance before they took off. The silence between them on the way to the event was heavy. Ethan was mentally rehearsing his speech for the investors, while Lily tried to understand why she had been chosen. When they arrived at the luxurious hotel, Ethan turned to her before stepping out of the car. "Remember, discreet and professional, nothing more." Lily didn't respond, but inside, something ignited. She knew this night could change everything. As they crossed the illuminated doors of the Gala ballroom, all eyes turned to them. Who was that woman next to the powerful CEO? And so began the night no one would forget. The Grand Plaza Hotel ballroom looked like something out of a movie. Massive crystal chandeliers hanging from the ceiling, people walking around with champagne flutes, dresses that seemed straight off magazine covers. Ethan Carter walked in with his trademark "I'm in charge" posture, and beside him was Lily Harper, the receptionist no one recognized but who now turned heads everywhere. The stares were inevitable. Some people whispered, others just stared. To many it was obvious. She must be some kind of paid escort. But Lily held her gaze steady, her chin up. She felt nervous, yes, but she also knew she needed to project confidence. She wasn't there just to decorate Ethan's arm. "Don't leave my side," he murmured without even looking at her. "Of course, Mr. Carter," she replied, maintaining a professional tone despite her growing discomfort. Soon, a small group of investors approached. Among them was Logan Brooks, a magnate known for his progressive views and sharp critiques. Ethan extended his hand to greet him. "Logan, good to see you. Let me introduce you to—" Before he could finish, Logan interrupted with a curious smile, looking directly at Lily. "And who might this young lady be?" he asked, his tone a mix of interest and provocation. Lily noticed Ethan's discomfort, but before he could answer for her, she stepped forward and said confidently, "Lily Harper, I work at Carter Enterprises." Logan raised an eyebrow, surprised by her boldness. Ethan frowned, clearly irritated, but stayed silent. Logan continued. Interesting. And what's your take on the company's current situation? The question hung in the air like a trap. Lily knew that one wrong word could cost her dearly, but at the same time, this was her chance. She took a deep breath and chose her words carefully. Every company faces challenges. The important thing is to focus on the people, the employees, the clients, because at the end of the day, they're what make the difference. A moment of silence followed. Logan smiled, genuinely intrigued. I like your perspective, Miss Harper. It's refreshing to hear someone acknowledge the human factor. Ethan was not pleased with the extra attention Lily was getting, but he kept his cold CEO facade intact. As the conversation went on, Logan made a point to draw Lily into the discussion. It was as if he'd completely forgotten about Ethan, which only made the tension rise. By the end of the night, when they finally stepped away from the investors, Ethan grabbed Lily's arm firmly. I told you to be discreet. Can you not follow a simple instruction? Lily calmly pulled her arm free, maintaining her composure. I only answered their questions, Mr. Carter. I didn't do anything wrong. You drew unnecessary attention. That's unacceptable. Lily realized arguing was pointless. Ethan would never admit she had made a good impression. All he saw was a threat to the control he so desperately clung to. Back in the car, the silence was almost suffocating. Ethan stared out the window, visibly irritated, while Lily gazed at the night outside, knowing that despite his anger, something had shifted. She was no longer just a receptionist. The next morning, Carter Enterprises was abuzz with unusual chatter. It seemed like everyone had heard about the mystery receptionist who had stolen the spotlight at the gala. Lily Harper walked into reception as she always did. But this time, the looks weren't indifferent. They were curious, even respectful. Lily, I heard you were stunning last night, a coworker commented while grabbing coffee. And what did you say to the investors? Everyone's talking about it. Another chimed in enthusiastically. Lily, with a reserved smile, tried to downplay it. It was just one night, nothing special. But she knew it was more than that. She had felt it in the investors' eyes, especially Logan Brooks. Something about her had caught their attention, and that could mean an opportunity. Still, not everyone was impressed. Ethan Carter had arrived at the office early, and as expected, he wasn't happy. Ryan Blake, his assistant, was the first to enter his office. As Lily walked past the corridor, she could hear Ethan's frustrated voice. She wasn't supposed to say anything, Ryan. That wasn't the plan. But Mr. Carter, the feedback was positive. Logan seemed pleased. Ethan cut him off firmly. It doesn't matter what Logan thought. The problem is, I lost control of the situation. Moments later, Ryan left the office with a serious expression. But before Lily could return to her desk, Ethan's door swung open. Harper, in my office. Now. She walked in, keeping her cool, though she already knew this wouldn't end well. Ethan sat at his desk, his eyes fixed on her as if trying to figure her out. He drummed his fingers on the desk before speaking. Do you think you know better than me? No, Mr. Carter. I just answered the questions I was asked. I didn't think staying silent when I could help was the right choice. Ethan stood up, pacing the room. You weren't supposed to shine, Harper. You were there to be discreet. Now you're the center of attention, and that... He stopped mid-sentence, taking a deep breath as if trying to control himself. That takes the situation out of my hands. Lily met his gaze, steady. Maybe that's what the company needs. Less control and more connection. Her words seemed to hit him in an unexpected way, but he quickly shifted gears. What happened last night was reckless. Don't let it happen again. Now get back to work. She left his office with the feeling that, despite everything, she had planted a seed. Ethan might not admit it, but something about her made him question the way he always did things. As Lily organized documents at the reception desk, her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number read, "You made a great impression last night. I want to talk about the future. Logan Brooks. Lily stared at the screen, surprised. It was confirmation that her presence at the gala had made a bigger impact than she could have imagined. Even knowing this might complicate things further with Ethan, she knew she couldn't ignore this opportunity. That message was a sign that her professional life was about to change, and maybe in ways she wasn't prepared for. Meanwhile, Logan Brooks' message wouldn't leave her mind. What did he mean by talk about the future? Lily knew responding could mean trouble, but it could also be the opportunity she'd never had. After hours of thinking, she typed a simple reply, "I'm available to talk." Logan's response was quick. "Lunch tomorrow at Madison Bistro, noon. Don't be late." The next day, Lily dressed more carefully than usual. She didn't want to seem like she was trying too hard, but she also couldn't come across as just a receptionist. When she arrived at the restaurant, Logan was already there, sitting at a secluded table with an expression that mixed curiosity and confidence. "Mr. Brooks, thank you for the invitation," Lily said as she sat down. "Please call me Logan," he replied, smiling. "After what I saw at the gala, I realized you're not just anybody. I want to know more about you, Lily." She hesitated but decided to be honest. "There's not much to tell. I'm just a receptionist." Logan shook his head. "No, you're not. And that's what caught my attention. The way you answered my questions, how you handled the pressure. That's rare. I see potential in you, Lily." She remained silent for a few seconds, trying to process what he was saying. Logan continued, "Carter Enterprises is in a crisis. Ethan is a good strategist, but he doesn't have the sensitivity the company needs right now. Someone like you can bring that sensitivity, that human perspective." Lily's eyes widened, unsure how to respond. Was he serious? She tried to hide her nervousness. "I think you're overestimating me." "I'm not," Logan said firmly. "And that's why I want to make you an offer." She leaned back in her chair, intrigued. "What kind of offer?" "I want you to start working with me. Not as a receptionist, but as someone with a voice. I want you to help me implement real changes, not just at Carter Enterprises, but in other companies where I have influence." Lily felt a mix of excitement and fear. It was an incredible opportunity, but she knew accepting it would mean stepping into a battlefield, especially with Ethan Carter. "This is a lot to process," she began, but Logan interrupted her. "Think carefully, Lily. This could change your life, but don't take too long. The right opportunities don't wait." Back at work, Lily felt torn. Logan's offer was tempting, but she knew Ethan wouldn't take it well. And deep down, there was something about Ethan that made her hesitate. He could be authoritarian and insensitive, but there were moments when she saw something more in him, as if he were trying to prove something to himself. While filing papers at the reception desk, Ethan walked past her, casting that cold look that seemed to pierce through her. Something told Lily that accepting Logan's offer would mean declaring war. The question was she ready for it? Lily spent the night tossing and turning, thinking about Logan Brooks' offer. She knew it could change her life, but she also knew she was getting into a dangerous game. Accepting meant going head-to-head with Ethan Carter, a man who didn't like to lose or be challenged. The next morning, Lily arrived at the office with dark circles under her eyes, but a decision made. As soon as she sat at the reception desk, she saw Ethan walking down the hallway with his usual determined stride. He stopped abruptly next to her, giving her a piercing look. "Don't lose focus, Harper. You've had enough attention this week." She resisted the urge to respond. Her tongue itched, but she knew it wasn't worth it. As soon as he walked away, she picked up her phone and sent a message to Logan. "I'm in. When do we start?" The reply came almost instantly. "Today. Meeting at 3 p.m. in my office. Bring ideas." Lily's heart raced. This was it. There was no turning back. When she arrived at Logan's office, she was received as someone important. Unlike how she was treated at Carter Enterprises, here people looked her in the eye as if she already had value. Logan was waiting for her in a modern meeting room with large windows overlooking the city. "Lily, "I'm glad you accepted," he said, shaking her hand. "I hope you're ready because things are about to get intense." "I was born ready," she replied, smiling, though she felt butterflies in her stomach. Logan wasted no time. He explained that the goal was to bring significant changes to Carter Enterprises and that he needed someone with a human vision to face resistance from Ethan and his allies. "You're the missing piece, Lily. Someone who can connect what the company needs with what people want." His words made Lily feel something she hadn't felt in a long time: confidence. For the first time, she wasn't seen as just a receptionist. She was important. However, not everything would be easy. The next day, Logan announced that Lily would be one of the leaders of a new project at Carter Enterprises, with a voice in strategic decisions. The news hit like a bombshell. In Ethan's office, the atmosphere was pure tension. Ryan walked in nervously, holding a tablet. "Mr. Carter, Logan has appointed Lily Harper as the leader of the new social impact project." Ethan looked up, incredulous. "Lily Harper? The receptionist?" "Not anymore, sir. It seems she now has an official position." Ethan leaned back in his chair, a cynical smile spreading across his face. "So that's it. She wants to play the big leagues. Let's see how far she can go." Meanwhile, in her new office with a small team, Lily began to feel the weight of her decision. People looked at her with curiosity, but also with distrust. Some whispered, while others didn't bother hiding their disdain. Ethan, of course, didn't make things easier. Every meeting was a battle. He interrupted, questioned, and did everything to show she wasn't ready. But Lily took deep breaths and pressed on. She knew she couldn't falter. After yet another intense meeting, Logan called Lily for a private conversation. "Don't let him intimidate you. Ethan is trying to test you, but trust in what you bring to the table." Lily smiled, tired but determined. "Don't worry, Logan. If he thinks he's going to take me down, he's in for a surprise." The war was declared, and Lily knew there would be many more confrontations. But for the first time, she felt she was in the right place, doing something that truly mattered. The game had started, but nothing prepared Lily for what came next. From the moment she was officially announced as the project leader, Ethan Carter seemed determined to show who was still in charge. He was relentless in meetings, cutting her ideas short, giving critical looks, and using every opportunity to test her patience. In the first strategic meeting with the executives, Ethan was direct. "So, Harper, what's the big idea? What are you going to do to save the company I built?" he said challengingly as he leaned back in his chair. Lily took a deep breath, feeling the executive's eyes on her. "The idea isn't just to save, Mr. Carter. It's to rebuild. And that starts with people, not numbers." The reactions were mixed, with some executives surprised and others skeptical. But Ethan only raised an eyebrow. "Rebuild? Sounds poetic, but poetry doesn't pay the bills." Logan, sitting next to her, stepped in. "Ethan, maybe it's time to try something new. Numbers are dropping because the public no longer trusts us. We need to show we're different now." Ethan squinted, clearly annoyed. "Different how? By replacing experience with inexperience?" Lily felt the direct jab but didn't lose her composure. Experience brought the company this far, but maybe it's human vision that will take it further. The silence that followed was heavy. Ethan leaned back in his chair, seemingly weighing her words. "Let's see if your vision works, Harper. But remember, the fall here is quick and painful." His words echoed in Lily's mind as she returned to her new office. Every step was a reminder of the weight of the responsibility she had taken on. But she wasn't willing to back down. In the days that followed, Ethan intensified his attacks. He delayed budget approvals, made sarcastic comments in meetings, and even ignored some of her suggestions as if he hadn't heard them. Lily knew it was intentional. He wanted her to quit, but all he was doing was strengthening her resolve. Logan called her for a meeting outside the office. At the cafe, he looked at her seriously. "You're handling Ethan well, but you need to be prepared. He won't stop here. Ethan doesn't know how to lose." "Neither do I," Lily replied with a defiant smile. Logan chuckled, but his eyes showed concern. Just be careful. Ethan can be ruthless when he feels threatened. Lily knew the warning was serious, but she couldn't let fear take over. That very afternoon, she organized a feedback session with employees from the areas most affected by the scandals. Ethan, of course, showed up unannounced. He sat in the back of the room, arms crossed, observing everything with that critical gaze. The session started tense, with employees hesitant to speak. But Lily made a point of creating a safe environment, encouraging everyone to share their concerns. When an older employee finally stood up to talk about poor working conditions, something shifted in the room. Others began to open up, and soon the stories were flowing. Ethan, who seemed uncomfortable at first, began paying real attention. He didn't say anything, but Lily could see on his face that some things were affecting him. At the end, as everyone was leaving, he called her aside. "Do you think this will solve anything?" he asked, arms crossed. "It will. Because now they know they have a voice," Lily replied without hesitation. Ethan shook his head, a cynical half-smile appearing on his face. "Let's see how long you last." As he walked away, Lily felt something strange. As difficult as Ethan was, there were moments when it seemed he was starting to see things differently. Maybe he wasn't as unshakable as he wanted to appear, but one thing was certain: Lily wasn't going to give up anytime soon. The feedback session had been a turning point. For the first time, Lily felt she was doing something that truly mattered, something that went beyond reports and charts. Employees seemed more connected, and some of her ideas were starting to gain traction. But, of course, Ethan Carter wasn't going to make it easy. In the following days, Ethan continued his strategy of resistance. He delayed budget approvals and questioned every detail of the projects Lily was leading. But despite this, something began to change. Other executives started to notice that her ideas were working. Small changes in the work environment were yielding unexpected results. During a meeting, Logan, as always, supported Lily. "Ethan, you can't ignore the numbers. Since these changes began, employee satisfaction levels have risen by 20%. Ethan, arms crossed, replied in his typical sarcastic tone. "Satisfaction doesn't pay the bills, Logan. This isn't a popularity contest." Lily took a deep breath before intervening. "Satisfaction doesn't pay the bills, but happy employees are more productive. And productivity brings results." The other executives murmured in approval. Ethan realized he was losing ground. "Fine, Harper. You want to make changes? Great. But remember, the success of this falls on your shoulders. If it fails, you take the blame." Lily knew he was trying to pressure her, but she didn't let it shake her. "I accept that responsibility." After the meeting, Logan pulled Lily aside. "You're doing well, but be careful. Ethan won't accept being overshadowed for long." "I know," Lily replied firmly, "but I won't back down." In the days that followed, Lily's ideas began to bear fruit. She implemented a training program for employees, something that had been ignored for years. She also promoted regular listening sessions where workers could share their concerns directly with leadership. The change was slow but noticeable. However, Ethan remained vigilant, waiting for any slip-up. One day, while Lily was finalizing the details of a report, he appeared in her office unannounced. "Harper, I hope you know what you're doing. These projects are costing more than planned. And they're delivering more results than expected," Lily replied without breaking eye contact. Ethan stepped closer, crossing his arms. "Do you really believe you're changing something?" "I know I am. And so do you, even if you don't want to admit it." For a moment, Ethan was silent, as if evaluating those words. He gave a slight smile but quickly returned to his rigid posture. "Just be careful, Harper. When things start to go right, that's when the attacks get heavier." She knew he was right. Logan had also warned her about this, and as expected, resistance began to come from other places. Some executives allied with Ethan started spreading rumors about Lily. trying to destabilize her. One day during a meeting, one of the executives made a direct jab. Maybe Lily is so focused on being popular that she's forgetting what's most important. Before Lily could respond, Logan stepped in. And what's most important then? Continuing to ignore problems and pretending everything's fine? The room went silent, but Lily knew she couldn't let Logan fight for her all the time. I know change is scary, she said calmly, but ignoring the problem is what got us here. What I'm trying to do isn't about popularity. It's about saving this company. The looks in the room shifted. Even Ethan seemed surprised. Despite all the resistance, Lily was earning respect, and that was something no one could take from her. But Lily knew the battles were just beginning. Deep down, she felt that the biggest challenge was yet to come, something that would shake both her and Ethan in ways neither of them expected. The following weeks brought an even heavier atmosphere to Carter Enterprises. Ethan Carter, who had already been making Lily's work difficult, intensified his actions behind the scenes. He didn't attack directly, but his strategy of delaying approvals, undermining budgets, and spreading doubts was working. Lily felt the weight of the resistance but wasn't willing to back down. One day, while reviewing reports in her new office, Ryan Blake, Ethan's assistant, rushed in with a warning. Lily, Ethan is rallying allies on the board. He wants to propose a review of your projects. Review? Lily looked up, trying to stay calm. He can't admit that the changes are working? Ryan shrugged, visibly uncomfortable. He thinks you're spending too many resources and taking unnecessary risks. Lily thanked him for the information, but deep down, she knew this was more than a budget issue. Ethan felt he was losing control, and that made him even more dangerous. At the next meeting, the tension was almost palpable. Ethan began by questioning the effectiveness of the training programs Lily had implemented. I understand that you want to make an impact, Harper, but we need to be realistic. These programs are draining resources. I want to know what real return we can expect. Lily stood up confidently and presented the data she had prepared. Mr. Carter, since these programs started, employee engagement has risen by 25%, and productivity has increased by 18%. These numbers don't lie. Ethan shook his head, maintaining his critical tone. Productivity is great, but it doesn't solve the problem of immediate costs. We're in a crisis, Harper. We can't afford to think long-term. Logan Brooks, who was observing the discussion, stepped in. Ethan, maybe that's exactly the problem. We're so focused on putting out fires that we're forgetting to rebuild what was destroyed. Ethan looked at Logan, clearly irritated, but turned back to Lily. Fine, Harper. Let's continue with your projects, but on one condition. I want detailed weekly reports and cost-benefit analyses for each step. If anything goes wrong, the responsibility is entirely yours. Lily nodded, keeping her composure. I accept. If anything goes wrong, I'll take the blame. But when it goes right, I hope you'll be willing to acknowledge it. The comment caught Ethan off guard. For a brief moment, he seemed to reflect, but quickly returned to his cold posture. We'll see. As Lily left the meeting, she knew she had won a small victory, but also that the battle was far from over. Ethan wouldn't give up so easily. Later, Logan called Lily for a private conversation. You're handling Ethan well, but you need to stay alert. He doesn't play fair. I know, Lily replied with a half smile, but I didn't come here to play. Logan laughed but quickly turned serious. Just be careful. He won't accept losing control. Lily returned to work with that conversation in mind. She knew Logan was right. Ethan was trying to destabilize her, and she needed to prepare for the next attacks. That same night, Ethan gathered some allies on the board for a private meeting. He knew he was losing influence, but also knew how to manipulate the system to his advantage. We need to slow down these changes, he said, looking at the other executives. Harper may be gaining allies, but that doesn't mean she knows what she's doing. While Ethan schemed, Lily kept working, focused on proving she deserved to be there. But deep down, she knew the war was far from over, and that the real confrontation was drawing closer. The following days were intense. Lily barely had time to breathe. Between meetings, reports, and Ethan's growing pressure, she began to notice that the environment was changing. Rumors in the office became more frequent, and the support she felt from some executives seemed to waver. Ethan was playing hardball. He knew that if he could undermine others' confidence in Lily, he could isolate and topple her. One morning, Lily was surprised by Ryan Blake, who appeared in her office with a serious expression. "Lily, you need to see this." He placed a tablet on her desk. It was an anonymous email that had been sent to several executives in the company, accusing Lily of manipulating data in the project progress reports. The title was clear: The Truth Behind Lily Harper's Changes. Lily felt her heart race. "This is a lie. Who did this?" Ryan sighed. "We don't know, but it's already circulating. Some people have started questioning the transparency of your projects." She knew this had Ethan's fingerprints all over it. There was no other explanation. He was tightening the strings to see how far she could go. Shortly after, Lily was called to an emergency meeting with the board. Ethan was there, with that cold, calculating look she had come to know so well. The board president began to speak. "Lily, we've received allegations about possible data manipulation in your reports. We need to clarify this immediately." She took a deep breath, maintaining her calm. "There's no manipulation whatsoever. Everything in the reports is based on real data, and I can prove it." Ethan crossed his arms, feigning neutrality. "No one is accusing you directly, Harper. But in times like these, we need to be cautious. After all, transparency is what you've always advocated for, isn't it?" Lily knew this was a game. He wanted to destabilize her and maybe even put her in a position where she couldn't defend herself. But she wasn't going down that easily. "I completely agree, Mr. Carter," she said firmly. "That's why I'm willing to share all project data with the board without restrictions." Her response surprised the executives in the room. Ethan didn't expect her to be so direct. The board president intervened. "Very well, Lily. We'll organize an audit to ensure everything is in order." "By all means, start now," Lily replied, looking Ethan directly in the eye. After the meeting, Logan called Lily for a conversation. "You were brave in there. But this isn't going to stop here. Ethan is going all in." "Let him try," Lily replied with a determined smile. "I'm not backing down." In the days that followed, the audit was initiated. Lily worked overtime to gather all the necessary documentation. She knew that if she made any mistakes, Ethan would use them against her. Meanwhile, Ethan continued scheming behind the scenes, trying to sway more board allies to his side. Despite all the chaos, Lily began to notice something strange. Some of Ethan's actions seemed less calculated and more emotional. He was acting as if he had something to lose, beyond the company's control. It was as if she had touched a weak spot he was desperately trying to hide. One night, while reviewing more reports, Lily came across an email sent by Ethan to a board executive. It was an attempt to delay an important approval for one of her projects. But what caught her attention was the final sentence. "We need to protect what we've built, even if it means slowing down temporarily." Lily was intrigued. He spoke as if he were defending something more than numbers, something personal. She knew she needed to understand what truly motivated Ethan. But first, she needed to survive the storm he had created. And deep down, Lily felt that this battle wasn't just about work. It was about who they were and what they were willing to risk. The war between the two was just beginning to reveal its true face, and Lily knew that the moment to face him head-on was closer than ever. The audit began to yield results. Lily's reports were flawless, as she knew they would be. Despite this, the office atmosphere remained tense. Ethan wasn't satisfied with just discrediting Lily. He wanted to dominate her, to prove he still had absolute control. One morning, Logan appeared in Lily's office with a concerned tone. "Lily, there's something happening that you need to know." "More problems?" she asked, exhausted. "It seems Ethan is trying to delay your project approvals again. But it's not just that. He's speaking directly to some investors, suggesting your ideas aren't sustainable." Lily clenched her fists, frustrated but unsurprised. "He won't stop, will he?" "Not until you quit, or he loses everything." Lily looked at Logan, determination in her eyes. "Then he's the one who's going to lose." That afternoon, Lily made a risky decision. She knew she needed to confront Ethan directly. She went to his office and knocked on the door. When she entered, he was standing by the window, hands in his pockets. "What is it now, Harper?" he asked without turning around. "I want to know why you're so determined to destroy me," she said, cutting straight to the point. Ethan finally turned to face her, his expression serious. "It's not about destroying you. It's about protecting what I built." Lily crossed her arms, meeting his gaze. "Protecting what exactly? Your reputation, your ego? Because the company is only surviving thanks to the changes I've implemented." Ethan took a step toward her, his eyes fixed on hers. "You think you understand everything, don't you? But it was never easy building this. Every decision, every cut, every sacrifice, all of it was to keep the company alive. And now you come in here thinking you can change everything with speeches about humanity and connection." Lily felt the weight of his words. For the first time, Ethan seemed to be showing something real, something he kept to himself. But she wasn't willing to back down. "Maybe the problem is what you chose to value, Ethan. Sometimes what we build becomes hollow if we forget the people who brought us here." He was silent for a moment, visibly affected by her words, but quickly returned to a defensive tone. "That doesn't change anything. I still think your ideas are risky. And I think you're afraid to admit they're working," Lily replied, holding his gaze. Ethan took a deep breath, seeming tired. "It's not just about that. If these changes fail, the blame won't fall on you, Harper. It'll fall on me. I'm the face of this company, and I always have been." Lily finally understood. Behind all the arrogance and resistance, Ethan was fighting against his own fear of failure, of losing control over something he saw as his creation. But she also knew she couldn't give in. "You're right, Ethan. The responsibility is yours, but that doesn't mean you have to carry it alone." He didn't respond, simply observing her with an unreadable expression. Finally, he said, "The audit is over. Your data checks out. It looks like you've won this round." Lily nodded, but knew this wasn't a complete victory. There was still a war between them, but for a moment it seemed something had shifted. When she left the office, Lily felt a mix of relief and unease. Ethan wasn't just the cold boss she had imagined. He was a man trying to protect something he loved but was also consumed by it. And deep down, she knew that confrontation was just the beginning of something bigger. The barriers between them were starting to crack, but that only made the battlefield more complex and personal. The tension between Lily and Ethan reached a new level. Even with the audit concluded and her projects officially validated, Ethan didn't relent. He intensified his backstage maneuvers, rallying allies on the board and trying to delay Lily's initiatives in every way possible. But on the other hand, something was changing. Ethan couldn't ignore the results her ideas were bringing. Meanwhile, Lily also started noticing something different. Ethan seemed less focused on discrediting her and more interested in challenging her, as if testing how far she could go. For Lily, the game was no longer purely professional. There was a mutual curiosity that both seemed hesitant to admit. One afternoon, Logan gathered Lily and other executives to present the latest quarterly figures. The data showed that Lily's programs were having a positive impact. Increased productivity, employee retention, and even improvements in the company's public image. "These results speak for themselves," Logan said, looking directly at Ethan. "It's time to fully support Lily's changes." Ethan remained silent for a moment, analyzing the numbers. Then, with an ironic smile, he replied, "Good work, Harper. It looks like you've proven your point. For now." "For now?" Lily retorted, crossing her arms. "These results aren't temporary, Ethan. This is just the beginning." The executives around the table exchanged glances, surprised by Lily's confidence. Logan smiled discreetly, knowing she was gaining ground. Ethan, however, didn't show any weakness. He stood up and, before leaving, left a comment laden with meaning. "Let's see if you can sustain this." After the meeting, Logan called Lily for a private conversation. "You're in a strong position now, but don't let your guard down. Ethan still has a lot of influence on the board." Lily nodded, but there was something about Ethan's behavior that was starting to get to her. He wasn't just a rival. There was a complexity to him that she couldn't ignore. A few days later, Ethan did something unexpected. He asked Lily to accompany him on a visit to one of the company's factories. "I want you to see the real challenges up close." "It's not just about data and charts, Harper." Lily accepted, curious to understand the reason behind the invitation. During the visit, Ethan showed her the working conditions and operational problems they faced daily. It was the first time she saw Ethan in a different environment, away from the control of meetings and the office. While walking through the factory, an older employee approached Ethan. "Mr. Carter, thank you for approving the new machinery. It's made our work much easier." Ethan smiled genuinely. "It was a team effort, but I'm glad it's working." Lily watched, intrigued. This Ethan was different, more human, more approachable. At the end of the visit, as they returned to the car, she couldn't help but ask, "Why did you bring me here?" Ethan looked at her, serious. "Because, despite everything, you're trying to make a difference, and as much as I hate to admit it, you're right about some things." Lily remained silent, surprised by his honesty. Something about that moment felt different, as if a barrier had been broken. In the following days, their interactions changed. The arguments still happened, but there was less hostility and more respect. Lily began to realize that Ethan wasn't just an obstacle. He was a man trapped between the fear of losing control and the need to change. But neither of them expected the next blow. News leaked to the press. One of Ethan's old projects was being investigated for irregularities. This put the company back at the center of a scandal, and all the changes Lily was implementing were at risk. As journalists swarmed the company headquarters and investors demanded answers, Lily and Ethan found themselves alone in his office. "This is serious, Harper," Ethan said, his voice tense. "If we don't handle this quickly, all the progress we've made will be lost." "Then let's handle it together," Lily replied, meeting his gaze. "This isn't the time for egos." Ethan was silent for a moment, then nodded. "All right, let's fight, but Harper, if this goes wrong, it could be the end for both of us." Lily felt the weight of his words, but also the determination in his eyes. For the first time, they were on the same side, and that changed everything. As the storm intensified, Lily knew that the real test of her partnership with Ethan was just beginning. The scandal grew larger than anyone had anticipated. The investigation into Ethan's old project exposed questionable management practices he had inherited from his predecessors. But as CEO, he bore the brunt of the blame. The news bombarded Carter Enterprises, and investors were increasingly impatient. Lily felt the tension in the air. For the first time, Ethan seemed vulnerable. He spent more time in the office, poring over documents and trying to find a solution. Yet, he remained focused. "Harper, I need you with me at the investors' meeting tomorrow. It's not just about the numbers, it's about showing we're on the right path." Lily knew this was more than a request. It was an admission that he needed her. "I'll be there," she replied firmly. The next morning, the meeting room was packed. The company's biggest investors were present and everyone seemed uneasy. Ethan began the presentation with his usual confident tone, but it was clear he was under pressure. When it was Lily's turn to speak, she took a deep breath and stood. "I know you have many concerns, and that's fair," she began, meeting each face in the room. "But I want you to know we're working to change this. The initiatives we've implemented are already showing results, and we're committed to ensuring this company not only survives, but thrives." One of the most critical investors raised a hand. "And how can we trust that these changes will be enough?" This isn't the first time we've heard promises. Lily glanced at Ethan briefly before replying. Trust isn't built with words, but with actions. We're taking concrete steps, and I personally commit to ensuring these changes are transparent and sustainable. The murmurs began to subside. Lily felt she was winning the group over, but knew there was still much work to be done. Ethan, standing beside her, finally intervened. I know my leadership is being questioned, he said with surprising sincerity. And I accept that. I've made mistakes, but I'm here to correct them. And with Lily's help and the team's efforts, I believe we can rebuild this company. His tone was different, more human. And for the first time, the investors seemed to consider trusting him again. After the meeting, Lily and Ethan found themselves alone in the hallway. He leaned against the wall, exhausted, but with a faint smile on his face. You were amazing in there, he said, looking at her. So were you, Lily replied, surprised by his honesty during the meeting. For a moment, the silence between them was filled with something deeper. It wasn't just respect or professionalism. There was a connection they both tried to ignore but was becoming impossible to hide. Harper, Ethan began, but was quickly interrupted by Logan, who appeared urgently. We need you both in the control room. Something new has come up in the investigation. The moment was broken, and they followed Logan immediately. In the room, a group of executives was gathered around a screen. A leaked email had surfaced, implicating a former board member in the scandal, which could completely change the course of the investigation. Lily looked at Ethan, sensing the gravity of the situation. Is this good or bad? It depends on how we handle it, he replied, squinting at the screen. But for the first time, we're not alone in this. Lily knew he was right. Despite all the tensions, they were starting to work as a real team. And that, more than anything else, could be the key to saving the company, and maybe something more. The crisis was far from over, but at that moment, Lily felt they had a real chance to win together. The leaked email shook the dynamics within Carter Enterprises. The document directly implicated a former board member, suggesting they had covered up unethical practices now central to the scandal. It was a relief for Ethan, but also opened a new battlefield, proving he had no direct involvement. Lily felt the gravity of the situation but also saw it as an opportunity. She and Ethan began working side by side, reviewing every document, preparing statements, and strategizing to minimize the damage. For the first time, Ethan didn't seem to distrust her, creating a new dynamic between them. Harper, I need you with me in all board meetings this week, Ethan said while reviewing reports late into the night. You have a way of connecting with people that I don't. Lily raised an eyebrow, surprised by the admission. Is that almost a compliment, Carter? Should I mark the date? He gave a tired but genuine smile. Don't get used to it. Despite the light moment, the work was heavy. Every decision was a test, and every meeting was an opportunity to fail. Lily noticed that, although Ethan remained rigid in many ways, he was beginning to trust her, and that motivated her even more. One of the tensest moments occurred during a meeting with key investors. Logan was present, and the atmosphere was one of distrust. This email changes some things, but it's still not enough to clear the company's reputation, one investor said, looking directly at Ethan. Before Ethan could respond, Lily stepped in. We understand your concern, but this shows we're willing to expose the truth, even when it doesn't favor us. That transparency is the first step in rebuilding your trust. All eyes turned to her, and Logan nodded discreetly. Ethan, on the other hand, remained silent for a moment before adding, Harper is right. This is the new direction of the company, and we're committed to it. After the meeting, Lily and Ethan found themselves in the hallway. He seemed more relaxed than usual, though the fatigue was evident. You handled yourself well in there, he said with a lighter tone than she was used to. And you didn't try to sabotage me. I'm impressed, Lily replied, teasing. Ethan laughed, a rare and unexpected sound. Maybe I'm learning to trust you. About time, she said, smiling but not hiding her exhaustion. The days remained intense. Lily began noticing that despite the complicated history, Ethan was genuinely trying to change. He participated in meetings more openly, made room for her ideas, and most importantly, seemed genuinely concerned about saving the company. One night, while finishing a report, Ethan paused and looked at Lily. "Harper, why are you still here? You could have taken any other opportunity, especially with Logan on your side." Lily thought for a moment before responding. "Because I believe this company can be better, and because, despite everything, I think you do too." Her words seemed to strike Ethan in a way he didn't expect. He looked away as if processing something deeper. "Maybe you're right," he said almost in a whisper. Before the conversation could go further, Logan appeared urgently. "We have a problem. The board wants an emergency vote to decide if Ethan stays on as CEO." Lily felt her stomach drop. This was the worst-case scenario. Without Ethan at the helm, all the progress they had made would be at risk. "When's the vote?" Ethan asked, his expression serious. "Tomorrow, we need a strategy," Logan replied. That night, Lily knew the company's future, and perhaps Ethan's, depended on what they did in the next few hours. More than ever, she felt they were in this together and couldn't let him fall. But she also knew the final challenge was just beginning. The boardroom was packed, the air heavy with tension. It was the day of the board vote to decide Ethan's future as CEO. Lily knew this moment was critical, not just for him, but for the entire company. If Ethan lost, everything they had fought for would be at risk. Ethan sat at the head of the table, his usual imposing posture intact, but Lily could see something different in him. It wasn't fear, but a quiet vulnerability, a recognition that he might lose it all. Logan spoke first, presenting data that proved the positive impacts of Lily's changes. He argued that for the first time in years, Carter Enterprises was regaining public credibility and internal morale. "What we're seeing isn't just a financial recovery, but a fresh start for this company," Logan said firmly. One of the board's most critical members remained unconvinced. "Logan, numbers are numbers, but Ethan's past practices still stain the company's image. How can we guarantee this won't happen again?" Ethan raised his hand, signaling his desire to respond. "I take full responsibility for the mistakes of the past," he said, his calm demeanor surprising. "But I want to make it clear that the changes happening now wouldn't be possible without Lily Harper's work." All eyes turned to Lily. Ethan continued. "She brought the vision we were missing, the courage to challenge what was wrong, and the humanity this company needed. If I stay as CEO, it will be to work alongside her and ensure these changes become permanent." Lily was taken aback by Ethan's words. He wasn't just admitting her importance. He was positioning himself as a partner, something she never thought possible weeks ago. Another board member interjected, seeming more receptive. "These changes are indeed impressive, but what guarantees that investors will continue to trust this leadership?" Lily felt it was her moment to speak. She stood and addressed the room. "Trust is built through consistent actions. Ethan and I have already shown that we can face crises and implement changes that work. But this will only succeed if we do it together, with your support." The silence that followed was tense. Every board member seemed to weigh the risks and benefits of keeping Ethan as CEO. Finally, the board president spoke. "We'll proceed with the vote." Lily and Ethan exchanged a glance as the votes were counted. Each yes or no announced felt like it held their fate. In the end, the result was revealed. Ethan would remain as CEO, but under one condition. He would formally establish a committee led by Lily to oversee the company's changes. The relief in the room was palpable. Ethan shook Lily's hand with a look that conveyed more than words ever could. "Looks like I'm still in charge," he said with a faint smile. "Not alone," Lily replied, her eyes sparkling. That evening, Ethan invited Lily to dinner. It wasn't a formal business meeting, but something more personal. They met at a quiet restaurant, away from the spotlight, and for the first time, spoke without the barriers of work. "Why didn't you give up on me?" Ethan asked, looking at her with genuine curiosity. Lily thought for a moment before answering. "Because I saw something in you that even you didn't seem to see. Someone who truly cares, even if you're afraid to show it." Ethan smiled, but it was a different smile, one filled with sincerity. "You're amazing, Harper. I don't know how I would have made it this far without you." "Maybe because I didn't let you quit," Lily joked, though her tone was affectionate. The conversation flowed, and for the first time they allowed themselves to relax. By the end of the night, Lily knew that despite all the battles, they had achieved something far deeper than just saving a company. Trust, respect, and perhaps something more. If you've made it this far, I hope you were moved by this story full of challenges and twists. In the end, it's not about winning alone, but about who we choose to have by our side. If you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel True Impressive Stories for more tales like this, filled with emotion and lessons. See you next time.